the morning session, I spoke about using yoga in depression, a common condition. 1 in 2 of us could get that condition during our lifetime. But here I am talking about a severe mental disorder, by far the most severe mental condition, schizophrenia. And use of yoga in this condition. Unlike in the morning session, we had patients coming into the outpatient, were offered yoga or drugs or both, depending on what they chose or what the clinicians advised. But here is a situation wherein all our patients with the diagnosis of schizophrenia would be receiving antipsychotic drugs. They receive antipsychotic drugs, they get partially better, and they need to get something else, and we had the chance of using yoga. So before going on with the applications of yoga, in this session, I will also refer to issues related to the caregiver burden or stress. Schizophrenia patients tend to have chronic illness, and so family members need to give them care for longer numbers of years. And here we thought we could use yoga as well. Which means yoga has multiple roles in the management of patients with schizophrenia. Okay, what is schizophrenia is something that most of us might have heard here and there. The mental functions become dissociated between each other, and they demonstrate a form of illness in these people which is characterized by abnormal thinking, abnormal perception, fairly disorganized in their day-to-day life, and they could well have significant cognitive symptoms but retain clear consciousness. The illness could go on for periods of several weeks to months. Although if the symptoms last for 1 year, we could make a diagnosis, but we know that symptoms go on for even longer numbers of years. Very typically, these people will have what we call as positive symptoms, which are characterized by abnormal beliefs, hearing voices, seeing images, thinking that they are being controlled by alien forces, and so on and so forth. They could have negative symptoms in which they are a little amotivated, they are slow in their action, they have paucity of their thoughts in their mind. They could also have fairly disorganized lifestyle. They attend poorly to their self-care needs. They don't attend to their day-to-day household chores. You see them collecting rubbish, swallowing it now and then. And more recently, people have begun to pay attention to what we call as cognitive symptoms. Symptoms wherein their intellect is affected, their executive functions in the mind or in the brain are affected, which in turn reflects on their capacity to meet with the challenges of day-to-day life. This is an example of a patient who had written to me some years ago. I fished out this letter. He having to say that he has been hearing ghosts' voices, and that he was the patient of Gandharvas and so on and so forth. He also had no insight. He went on to say that I could possibly be having something called as a fake schizophrenia. It is not true schizophrenia. But he didn't believe that he had the illness. This condition, although it is the severest form, Luckily, it has a very low incidence. In 10,000 population, you may see one or maybe at best two people developing the illness in a period of a year. But given that this illness is a chronic one, it tends to remain for longer periods of time, a cross-section of population in 1,000 population, you may see up to 3 to 4 persons having schizophrenia needing treatment in that population. This has been fairly consistently replicated across cultures in different parts of the world and different countries. And so it seems that this disease is determined by some sort of a biological process than merely some social events. Although social events could make schizophrenia worse, but nonetheless it is unlikely that schizophrenia was caused essentially by social events. Schizophrenia, like I said, has an insidious, slowly marching process. A good number of them could remit, but a good number of them would continue to have the disease progressing to develop a fairly residual state of the condition, which we see in day-to-day life. Genes have been blamed, although gene causation contribution is not totally explained. It does not totally explain schizophrenia. There are several environmental factors that have been implicated as possibly precipitating schizophrenia or even contributing to development of schizophrenia. Some of them would mean obstetric complications, people having had some difficulty during their birth with some damage to the brain, people who have abused drugs, alcohol, stimulant drugs in particular, cannabis, cocaine, amphetamines, these people can have a risk of developing schizophrenia. Upbringing itself has not much of a role in generating schizophrenia. Various theories have been talked about. One of the fairly consistent theory has been excess of dopamine in the brain or the changes in the receptors of the dopamine. Dopamine acts on some other chemicals on the nerve cells, whether they have gotten changed. There is evidence that this theory works because the drugs that we use to treat schizophrenia seems to affect this dopamine transmission. They block the receptors of the dopamine. Also, drugs which precipitate schizophrenia, like amphetamine, increase levels of dopamine in the brain. So for these reasons, we have stuck to this dopamine theory, but this does not satisfactorily explain everything about schizophrenia. So when you have a patient of schizophrenia, we need to give treatment for schizophrenia patients. And we had about 20 years ago what we call as typical antipsychotics, the first 4 of them. Then we had the atypical antipsychotics. Both drugs are very well known to work in schizophrenia. They do get symptoms better. This year we had an opportunity to treat patients in the community, identify them and treat them. It just happens that about 30 of them, the family did not want treatment for various other belief systems they had, and even the patients were not supportable by the community, so they remained off treatment. They did not get treatment. Their illness remained without any change. You give treatment, antipsychotic drugs, their treatment effects were significantly in favor of getting these people better. So which means antipsychotic drugs seem to benefit these people, and as an allopathic doctor and a couple of my colleagues who are here, we all prescribe antipsychotic drugs to treat patients with schizophrenia. But year after year, as we are using antipsychotic drugs, we are recognizing more and more side effects. Side effects which were not seen when the drug was introduced in the market started to appear if the drugs were used for a longer period. Side effects are inseparable properties of antipsychotic drugs. For that matter, one of my teachers used to tell all of us, each time when the medical representative or the pharmacy industry claimed that a drug with least side effect has been introduced, he would make, although we used to see it as cynicism, but I in retrospect see that statement had some profound meaning. He would say a drug that does not have side effect is not likely to have effect either. So which means side effect is something that we need to buy along with its therapeutic effects. But nonetheless, with all seriousness, let me say that scientists are working on drugs which are going to be safer, but we haven't found the safest medicine yet. Side effects are there. We're going to have side effects. This is the list with the typical antipsychotics, and this is the list of side effects with the atypical antipsychotics. And it seems that the atypical antipsychotics side effects are even more serious than those with the typical antipsychotics. But nonetheless, we have to stay put with them if we have to treat schizophrenia. We treat schizophrenia with antipsychotic drugs, and as I said, it does get them better. For a lucky few of them, it remits totally and nothing else happens. For some of them, it does remit totally, but unfortunately they get some more episodes. But unfortunate 2 out of 5, it remits or it does not remit at all. Even with aggressive antipsychotic treatment, they continue to deteriorate. They continue to have illness well above their baseline status. They don't remit totally. So it is here we started getting concerned. Although as we keep seeing more and more carefully, even in this group of people, when the schizophrenia affects them, there are some minor symptoms that remain and make them less functional. So we have to treat these people. The drugs explain only 50% of the effects. Other 50% of the effect, we need non-drug interventions. We use family therapy, we use individual psychotherapy, we use cognitive remediation, we use rehabilitation, and why not yoga? That was the way in which we started approaching the question, but now we believe that yoga has much more than just why not one of the treatment be yoga. I think yoga could be the main treatment when we are talking of non-medicinal treatments. So we tried yoga, and very recently a review looked up what is the role of yoga in schizophrenia. This person had a reservation in concluding or in making a summary comment of yoga and schizophrenia. He found that yoga had some marginal effects on the quality of life. At the time when he wrote this paper, a review which was very recently published, 2013, our papers on yoga and schizophrenia, which we had done little more controlled, rigorous experimental studies, had not been published yet. And so I take this opportunity to introduce you to some of the work that we did, which have not been included in this review, but the work that we did made us believe in yoga more strongly and advocating yoga for treatment of this severe mental disorder. This particular paper, although we have published much earlier, I wanted to introduce here because the author of this paper is sitting right in this audience with all of you, Dr. Ganeshan, who is a psychiatrist in Melbourne, who worked in NIMHANS when he did this work. And it's amongst the most cited paper of ECT, of yoga in schizophrenia, where we found that yoga did produce, this was a randomized controlled study, a design that is expected by allopathic doctors to follow if they have to buy the results. And the numbers were also fairly substantial, and the evidence indicated that yoga, in compared to a controlled situation that was physical exercise taught for 1 hour. At the end of 4 months, people who practiced yoga, the black lines, had a significant reduction in some symptoms and significant improvement in some of the qualities of life measurements. So yoga did produce benefit. The argument was, what if they did nothing? And so whatever you did at the end of 4 weeks, you measured. In both the groups, there was some improvement. was it as good as even if we had not done either of the two? So we had to add we had to do another study on similar lines, wherein we had to add a third arm into our study called as the wait list. You had yoga, physical exercise, and wait list. All these works have been guided by Dr. Nagendra, and the design of yoga was given by Dr. H.R. Nagendra in these studies. And we found that this randomized controlled study, although we had about 100 patients, to recruit 100 patients, we had to actually screen as many as about 1,500 subjects and motivate them to follow this treatment for various other reasons. Not merely because they were not interested in yoga, but more because of the logistics of having to come for a period of full 1 month to learn yoga and be in touch with us for the next 3 months, and so on and so forth. So we measure outcome of schizophrenia by some standard rating scales to measure the positive symptoms, to measure the negative symptoms. I will also introduce you to our other results on cognitive symptoms little later. Positive symptoms did not get as much better. Yoga, exercise, or wait list, it was about the same. Whereas when we talk of negative symptoms, a substantially higher number of them got better compared to either exercise or wait list. Together, if you take all symptoms together, yoga had the best effects, followed by exercise, and wait list had almost very minimal effect on getting the residual symptoms better. In other words, these people were on antipsychotic drugs. They were coming to the outpatient for follow-up for several weeks, months, years. And in these people, we had found that they hadn't been totally well, so we wanted to add yoga. This is the group of people where we were able to obtain improvements not only in terms of symptoms and also with respect to social and occupational function. It is not good enough that they got better, they are also seen to be better in social life, and here again yoga was better than the other two interventions that we had tried. So we did report these findings. What is important is not enough that their psychotic symptoms, negative symptoms got better, did they also get better in their cognition? Schizophrenia, when we talk of cognition, there are attention paid to social cognition, their ability to recognize in others social smile, anger, fear, other person being depressed. The schizophrenia people are quite detached from the expressions of their own peers. In fact, that's the reason why they don't get as much social bondage as they expected to get from other healthy individuals. So this social cognition is impaired in schizophrenia. The blue line, as they continue to get yoga, their accuracy to recognize emotions in others' faces got better. Although this was not a very, although this was statistically significant, maybe with more numbers of patients and a better measurement of social cognition, we hope to see more robust evidence of social functioning getting better. All this work was on patients of schizophrenia who were on follow-up treatment or willing to come for 4 full weeks of a yoga therapy package. And then to be followed up for another 3 more months, totally 4 months of work. Whereas here we had a group of people who were inpatients. Why not try yoga when they are inpatients? When they were about to get better and be discharged, can you treat them in addition to drugs with yoga for periods of a week or 2? This is a 2-week training of yoga and 2 more weeks of observation in their first follow-up. Yes, there was a substantial reduction in their symptom because they were acutely ill. Antipsychotics were given, they got robustly improved. But yet, with addition of yoga, this improvement could be made a shade better. Maybe if they continue to be observed for a longer period, the differences between yoga and no-yoga group could perhaps widen, although this is the limited data that we have to share with you at this point of time. How did people with yoga get better? What did yoga do? Like I showed you in my previous talk in the morning, the brain-derived neurotrophic factor story on depression I was talking about. We did not know whether that would be the approach. We tried another approach. We measured a hormone called as oxytocin. Oxytocin is also called as cuddling hormone. It is supposed to facilitate our experience of feeling emotions, also our experience of understanding or feeling with others. Oxytocin levels are low in schizophrenia, particularly in those people who have had a chronic illness with cognition having gone down. That's why they feel very detached and they are not very emotive in their expressions. And people have tried in West, and even some studies have also begun to be done in India, giving oxytocin nasally, so that the levels of oxytocin go up, and so their cognition, emotional responsiveness gets better. In fact, a trial of oxytocin in schizophrenia has just begun a few days ago at NIMHANS. One of our research colleagues has started doing this work. But here it is, when you do yoga, acute session of yogasana, followed by its training for a full 1 month, the levels of oxytocin went up in patients of schizophrenia. And in those who did a wait-listed situation, the oxytocin levels did not change. So it seems that instead of an exogenous oxytocin administration, oxytocin autogenously could be increased if you had practiced yoga. And this perhaps explains to an extent, in this group of people, both the yoga and the weightless people, significant differences were there in terms of their emotional recognition accuracy. People with yoga recognized emotions much more accurately than those who were only waitlisted. Although I am not presenting that data here, suffice to say that yoga inherently increases the levels of oxytocin and so makes these people better with respect to their emotional cognition. I had shown this slide in the morning that yoga increases the levels of brain-derived neurotrophic factor. There is some evidence that schizophrenia also has lowered levels of BDNF, and so whether this could be another mechanism which operates in patients of schizophrenia to get them better. So this is about schizophrenia, chronically ill under follow-up, acutely ill in the treatment in the hospital, and in the situations where their cognition is impaired. Now, a byproduct of all our research was, why not use yoga for the caregivers of schizophrenia, the family members who feel burdened by an ill individual having to be supported for several years in the family. So we had a first study that was done where patients received just 2 weeks of yoga. When their family member was in an acute inpatient care, the relatives were given a yoga. But it so happened that the 2 weeks of yoga practice, in which they did not participate in all the 10 days of yoga session, they on an average had only about 6 sessions, and a PhD student who did this work under the guidance of Dr. Nagendra found that short practice of yoga was not effective. It is also because in an acute situation, when the inpatients were getting treatment, they got dramatically improved in the hospital. The family must have experienced a great reduction of their burden because the improvement that were obtained in the hospital were dramatic. So we thought this may not be the right population on which we need to test the anti-stress effect of yoga in the caregivers. So on the other hand, we also found that very short duration of yoga exposure might also not be perhaps sufficient. Here we had a study in which we were able to look at yoga, no yoga. The caregiver burden in schizophrenia patients, after 1 month of practice of yoga, the experience of the burden dropped, indicating that the caregiver stress significantly lowered following yoga. But of course, given for a period of 1 full month, here is a group of people who had been chronically stressed, because these are the outpatients of schizophrenia who have been under follow-up for a longer numbers of months or years, and the caregivers who came along with them were encouraged to take part in a study, again a randomized study, yoga or no yoga. Yoga had a role in schizophrenia, in caregivers, reduction of caregiver stress. So to summarize, in this severe conditions such as schizophrenia, yoga has significant effects in the outpatients. Please note, all these studies in patients, whether outpatients or inpatients, we have continued the antipsychotic drug and then added yoga. So I am not at this point of time advocating yoga without antipsychotic drugs in the severe condition of schizophrenia. Yoga did produce significant benefits in the outpatients. It was better than nothing at all, the waitlist group, in terms of the negative symptoms of schizophrenia. Particularly, they got better with respect to this negative symptom. In fact, treating negative symptom has been a challenge in schizophrenia management. Yoga did produce some improvement in them. Yoga improved also the social cognition. Yoga improvement in social cognition was possibly explained by way of its elevating the plasma levels of oxytocin, blood levels of oxytocin. Yoga had some marginal benefit even in a short exposure in the acutely ill mentally schizophrenia patients in the wards, in the early stages of their illness. Yoga given for a longer period for the outpatients caregivers seemed to reduce their burden. Of course, I didn't present the other information of what were the barriers that the patients expressed or felt, experienced in terms of receiving yoga. Like I mentioned, 120 patients of schizophrenia had to be recruited after screening as many as about 1,200 schizophrenia patients who were eligible for the study. But given the option of having to receive yoga on a daily basis under the instructor's training for 1 full month, many people felt that was a serious barrier and they couldn't cross a barrier. Most of them were willing to receive yoga, but given yoga very closer, much closer to their family, where they could travel every day and receive yoga. I was talking to a set of medical doctors here who also experienced the same thing in Melbourne. We could have yoga therapy centers, but it has to be spread out different parts of places when my patient can come and receive yoga, having to travel not a long distance, very short distance. So it seems those are the barriers that we may need to cross over the course of time. I think future research in yoga, in schizophrenia, would make this particular therapy be available to all patients for their benefit. Thank you.